All right, tech enthusiasts, it's time to fix a issue in the home theater, a logistics issue that's been plaguing me for as long as I've had the room. For as long as this room has existed, the projector has been inside the room. Originally, it was on a shelf. That curtain wasn't there. It was on a shelf above a closet door that's behind that curtain. And now for the longest time since, it's been hanging on that mount. But of course, I have a much larger screen than I have the throw distance to fill. We're looking at newer models of projectors nowadays, like that JVC NX7 series and whatever successors may potentially come. They're bigger, they're heavier, they're not going to work as well on that ceiling mount. I can't move the projector any further back to create more distance, and even considering other things to come potentially, like an anamorphic lens, there's just absolutely no ability to support that kind of a thing in the setup. So that closet's been sitting dormant for nigh on like 5 years. It's time to use it as a projection room. So I'm going to vlog the whole project here. I have some ideas, I have plans in mind. We'll see how it goes and how it turns out in the end. So join me in this little home theater upgrade journey. All right, so here we go. I am voicing this over in post just so that I can kind of qualify the steps and the stages a little bit better. But we have the NX7 there hanging on a ceiling mount. That's a Chief RPA mount. I've had these GIK base trap style panels on their stands in front of the curtain, in front of the door for quite some time. And again, I'm dealing with about 16 feet of throw distance, not enough to fill my 163-inch screen. So if we move the panels out of the way, we open the door, take a look at what's inside. This is a finished closet. All the closets in our house were actually finished when we built the original construction. It's all built out of 3/4 inch like birch plywood, sturdy shelf with panels on the sides and the shelves. The back of the actual closet is just a drywall wall, but you can see it's a pretty good size in here, good cavity. I thought at one point in time that I might actually put the projector up. You can see just how much volume of space actually exists above the shelf itself. This is out in the poured foundation of our basement wall, because up above there is our living room and actually kind of the chimney of our fireplace. But this is all clean and finished in here. However, what I found is that what I was thinking is that putting the projector up inside the closet is not really a good call. It's going to be up where heat naturally kind of wants to go. As heat goes up, there's just not enough space. There's not enough clearance around the unit. There's definitely not enough space front to back. I wouldn't be able to fit a unit in there with a future possible Panamorph DCR. And so getting it up there is a bad idea. And again, I'm kind of sticking to my guideline of not wanting to tear stuff up too much. I didn't want to cut holes through the walls. And I'm not looking to make this into a completely sealed projection room environment, as we'll see in a little bit. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and just take the door off the hinges rather than cutting a porthole in the door and setting up for active cooling. But by getting the projector in here, what I ended up really gaining in the end is almost about 2.5 feet of extra throw distance. I was also assuming at the start of the project that I might not just use the shelves as they are in there, that I might actually deconstruct the shelves, take them out, go to Home Depot and say, let's buy a sturdy metal, like garage style shelving unit and just set it up in there. But what I found after some research is that a lot of the shelves that I was looking at Home Depot were only about 60 inches high. And this top shelf right here is roughly about the same. And it's built in, it's sturdy, and it's good to go. So I figured I'm better off actually just kind of sticking to what I had available to me. However, there are some constraints here. The depth of the shelf is not enough to set a projector like an NX7, let alone something like an NZ9 on. The front of the feet would be hanging off the front of the shelf. We got to make sure to give a projector clearance in the back. We don't want the back of the projector shoved right up against the back wall. There needs to be room for airflow kind of all around the unit. But I figured I could rig this up pretty good. So I started formulating some ideas how we could extend the shelf forward, reinforce it, brace it, and kind of be good to go for the whole unit, giving it good positioning and achieving the ultimate goal. With the door off, the projector would be able to actually come out into the door jamb space, and again, take advantage of all that depth, give it breathing room all around, and provide for everything that we needed. Now the shelf is, as mentioned, the shelf is pretty sturdy, but as we're getting into some of these bigger model of projectors, NZ9s and whatnot, we're talking about projectors that are, I think, something on the order of like 55, 60 pounds. And so I wouldn't fully trust this shelf. I would definitely wanted to provide some extra bracing, some extra support. I don't want any sagging as well, sagging over time, let alone the shelf coming down, but sagging would result, of course, in the alignment of the projector being off and needing to adjust for that. So reinforcement, extension, and a little bit of re-engineering in here was definitely warranted. One of the other things that I knew I could do was take the top shelf off. Even though this is one complete built-in, we actually had to remove the top of this entire shelving unit at one point in time, and so that was removable. We'll see actually in the long run I do take that off and use the final kind of installation of the projector without that top shelf above it, thus also giving it some extra room to breathe and providing for, I think, an overall better install. So with these plans, I was pretty much good to go. Again, dimensioning, fit, weight, and support. I had a good feeling that I could address all of the kind of installation shortcomings that I might encounter, but this stuff is a process, and I definitely pivoted a couple of elements along the way here. Very happy with the result in the end, but definitely a process and not done even per this whole video. So my solution to extend the shelf was to go get some more plywood. I went to Home Depot, found effectively a 3/4 inch plywood, 2x4 foot shelf. I just had them rip it in half at Best Buy. So this is a 2x2 panel that we're looking at. Drilled holes in the back, that pattern of 5 holes there, so that I could sink essentially some 3/8 inch lag bolts through this shelf, down through the existing shelf in the closet, and with some washers and some nuts be able to secure it in. Painted it the same black brown so that everything kind of matches. And here we are basically getting prepped, getting ready to go ahead and install the new plate, the new base shelf, again providing that extension so that the projector can be fully supported and it can come out a bit from the wall. Ultimately, this was me kind of holding the shelf in place using the drill that's there and drilling through the pre-holes that I did outside in this panel to get through the shelf that was in the closet. Now I made a couple pivots already as well. I had originally bought some smaller L-shaped brackets to provide support to the underside of the existing shelf, but I went back and I bought much more heavy-duty shelf brackets. The ones on the floor, they're capable of holding hundreds of pounds. I think the biggest ones, even a pair, is rated for something like 1,200 pounds. So this thing, by the time I'm done, it's not coming down. I could hang from it and do some pull-ups very easily. So there's the shelf. As I mentioned, the 5 lag bolts are in, washers on top, washers and nuts on the bottom, all tightened down and securely fastened. So this shelf is not coming forward. It's secured to the structure of the existing shelf. Now, one of the things that I did start to wonder a little bit about is still some forward sag to this shelf over the long run, but I had some other solutions for that, as we'll see coming up. But right off the bat here, I was pretty happy with this. I probably could have gone a little bit less deep, but 24 by 24 fit the bill. And of course, here we are now with all the brackets installed. The ones that I used in the back were just slightly less beefy than the ones in the front. The Home Depot that I went to actually didn't have 4 of the thicker bar supports, but again, a pair of the thicker bar supports is rated for 1,200 pounds. The ones in the back are rated in a pair for something like 300 or 400 pounds. So we're not even touching anywhere near that level of weight. But I went with 4 of them anyway. So the back is braced, the front is braced, and again, I could grab the sides of those front angled brackets and do some pull-ups, and this thing is stable, and it's not coming down. And so here's my first test, projector in. Now, the thing that I want to say right off the bat is that the project is not done. We're 9 minutes in here to a 24-minute video. I did not leave it this way. This was a test. This was an initial test. I would not advise putting your projector in such a confined space. If you're building a hush box, there's no rear airflow. There's no fans blowing cool air in the back here. This would have been a bad idea as a long-term solution, but we're early in the process. I'm not done. So stick with me here, please. Again, one of the things that I was concerned about is some of that front sag from some of the weight of the projector sitting forward on that board. I thought maybe at this point I might even need to do some extra brackets, forward of the built-in shelf, but inside the door jamb, just to hold up the front of the shelf. But I saw this a completely different way, and in the end, I'll get all the stability that I need out of it. But definitely getting excited at this point for the first time, able to fill up my screen. And so a little while back in the channel, I bought these little 5-inch masking panels, because with 163-inch 235:1 screen, Seymour AV, it's about 150 inches wide. I could only fill it to about 140 inches wide with a 16-foot throw. Bought these little panels to mask it off, able to take them down. Hopefully these panels will never have to go onto the screen anymore. And so testing out here again, notice the door is gone. The door is off the hinges. That wasn't too hard to do. Notice some of the white channels around the projector. That's some of my existing cable runs that was going on behind the curtain. And this was great. I loved it. For the first time in the Techthusiasm home theater, 163 inches in all its glory. Again, now moving from a less than 16 foot to greater than 18 foot-ish throw distance. Again, not final, just tucking the curtain away so that it had a place to go. But a couple things that I realized after getting this initially set up and thinking about it some more. I was, again, still concerned about some of that front shelf sag. But something else that I noticed as well is with the bottom of that, the shelf that the projector is sitting on right now, roughly being about 60 inches off the floor, roughly 5'10". As I would walk through the room, my eyes were real close to like lens level. And so looking back with the projector turned on was very uncomfortable, as that light was really coming literally straight out at eye level. And so I started thinking, again, a little bit more about, I'm going to need some better reinforcement. I'm going to need definitely some better airflow. I want to be able to open up the space around the projector quite a bit more, but then also wanting to get a little bit more height ultimately out of the unit. Now, where the projector lens is now, it's actually down inside the screen image space. I have everything I need, no problem at all in terms of being able to shift and adjust and zoom and get everything where it needs to be. But again, wanting to get kind of the center of that light path set a little bit higher. I realized as well when I was doing some kind of initial tinkering, a little initial calibration here, word to the wise, be careful what type of content you use when you're testing things out for fit and fill. If you noticed a little while back there, I had Star Wars Empire Strikes Back up. That's actually a 240 movie. It's not a 235:1. The screen, of course, is a 235:1. And I was kind of misaligning a bit there. I was also thinking a little bit actually at this point that, maybe I won't actually take the ceiling mount down, as I might be able to have multiple projectors through the room at some point in time, or have some folks over for meetups and gatherings, and people bring other units over. Might be kind of nice actually to go ahead and just leave the projector mount hanging up there, and then that way I could actually install a second projector in a good spot and be able to do shoot-outs and shoot-offs and stuff like that. I was also thinking at this point too, definitely prepared, wanting to run a second long HDMI cable to the back of the projector for a couple different reasons. One, being able to bypass a video processor and do some comparisons, a la MadVR tone mapping versus JVC tone mapping, as well as bypassing, say, a video processor for a second gaming style input. The nice thing about this is behind the curtain, I can run cables, I can move things around, I can do whatever I want. And one of the other things actually that this whole migration was allowing me to fix in the room that I only really kind of realized was a bit of a challenge more recently is an idea of kind of like micro vibration on the screen itself. So my ceiling mount there is mounted, as you can see, in this soffit. There's a soffit in the back of the room, and my mechanical room where I was just pointing is right on the other side of that wall. We have a geothermal heating cooling system in our house, which means there's pretty sizable tubes that pump fluid out into the backyard down underground. The fluid goes through the rings outside and it comes back into the house, and those tubes run through this soffit. And so when the HVAC is running, heat or air conditioning, the pump is running, that fluid is flowing, and those tubes are vibrating, and they're kind of like laying braced in that soffit. And that soffit actually has a little bit of movement to it, a little bit of vibration to it. That vibration actually transfers to the ceiling mount. And what I was finding is, like, I noticed, like with the heat on going up closer to my screen, I can see a real minor kind of like micro vibration in the screen, which I'm sure is lending itself to an idea of like some slightly reduced perceived sharpness back from the seating position. So, if you've got a ceiling mount in a little bit of an unstable ceiling position, or there's extra vibrations around your home that might be transferring from other infrastructure, maybe your washer and dryer are on the level up above your theater, and clothes are being washed while you're watching a movie, you might be getting some of that micro vibration as well. So I really like the concept of this shelf, because now this shelf is locked in, it's stable, it's not going to be moving and being affected essentially by kind of like the environmental factor in that way. Now, of course, my long-term plans will probably involve a full redo of this room, talking down the road, probably in a time period measured in years, but we'll flip this whole thing around. We'll put the projector literally in the other room with the other gear on the wall behind where the screen is now. I'd love to have this whole thing basically reversed and be able to accomplish a lot of this in a much better way. But hey, that's a big dollar project. A lot of work and effort it's going to take to do that, and not ready anywhere near for that right now. So overall, again, at this point in the project, I was feeling happy with the progress, happy with the way things are going, but realizing, okay, we got to go a little bit farther with this. How are we going to raise up the projector? And so my thought was, well, let's go back to Home Depot again. I think I made 3 trips to Home Depot the whole time for this project. And I picked myself up a 14-foot 2x6 board. And my thought was, or as you can see, I already had the little section there. I have about 10 inches of space from the top of the projector kind of sitting in the door jamb to the top opening of the door jamb. And again, not looking to rip anything up, not looking to change the door installation, change the door jamb or anything. But I had the folks at Home Depot rip that 14-foot long board into multiple, like 2-foot, 20-inch, 2-foot long sections. And I figured I can secure these in there, stack them up, basically one on top of the other on top of the other, to be able to put the projector feet securely on that and raise it up. And then here you can see, as I mentioned earlier, this shelf has already been knocked out and was removable without having to additionally kind of tear anything up. I'm a little less concerned with the fit and finish. Things can look pretty raw to a certain extent inside the closet, because eventually this curtain's going to come down and the projected image will be shining through that curtain. As long as everything inside the closet is dark, I'm okay with it. So here we go. I pulled that shelf out, a little bit of hammer and knocked it out. Touched up there was a little white drywall scuff marks and whatnot. Touched them up with the same black brown paint. Again, this doesn't have to look super great, but it just needs to look dark. And so here's the boards. I did go ahead as well, just like I painted the plywood. Figured, like, let's go ahead and paint these boards. Did it a little bit of a cheap job. Like, I didn't have to paint necessarily the tops and bottoms of all the boards, just the sides and the front, except for 2 of them, of course, that would be ultimately on top of the stack. And this gives me a little bit of flexibility as well, because I was going to stack 4 of these up. If in the future I got a slightly bigger projector, want to bring it down a little bit, I could always just take one out and shim it down a little bit more, bring down the overall height of the wood stack, bringing the projector down and giving me some more space. But I also wanted to make sure to maintain space so that I can reach behind the projector, unplug a cable and whatnot if I needed to. So here we go. Now the boards are all in. I screwed them in, multiple screws in each one. So I put the first board in, zip, screwed that one down into the plywood, into the shelf below it. Next board, screwed that board into the board below it, and so on until all 4 were there and stacked up, secured, and ready to go. So these stacks are completely stable. I feel completely comfortable putting the projector onto these stacks. They're not shaking, they're not moving, they're not going to tumble down in any way. There's plenty of width there to be able to kind of shift the projector around. There's plenty of depth here again, to be able to pull, set the projector in there, be able to have it with clearance on the back of the projector to the wall. Now the shelf is out and kind of, so here's the final view. So this is significantly improved from kind of the initial test where the unit itself was sitting inside that topmost shelf with the lid on effectively. Now I've got several feet of space up above this. We've got space on the sides. We have space behind. And I liked this as well as I was thinking it through, doing it this way. I've got space even underneath now for air essentially to flow through. And I've got options. So if I'm going to monitor this, I'm going to keep an eye on it. We'll make sure it's not getting too warm in here. Nothing's overheating. Everything's working the way it's supposed to. Everything's working within spec. But I have additional options. I could perhaps drill a number of holes, say let's say in the back of the shelf, through the plywood extension and the shelf underneath it, thus even giving an opportunity for more air to kind of come up through the shelf in the space behind there. Makes me wonder as well, potentially, like what's the future of this shelf now that the door's off. I probably should slam a bunch of rock wool in here on all these other open shelves, open air shelves, and kind of make even a bigger base trap out of them. By default here, I'm just going to kind of put the existing traps on the stands back in front of the door, so there's be a little air behind them, airspace behind them. I also, as you can see, there's two now of those blue-green cable pulls. That's a second fiber optic HDMI. And so this is where it gets a little bit cheesy, but bear with me here. I wanted to only cut once, definitely kind of get everything into what I consider to be a bit of a final position, and then make the cut in the curtain, because once that material is gone, it's probably not going back on there. I have already, since this video, opened up the opening a little bit more, and I probably will continue to do so. Basically kind of free that up so the warm air that's exhausting from the projector has the ability to basically blow all the way through. And here we are, Kaleidoscape UI, again, full screen use, love it in all its glory. 163-inch diagonal, 150 inches wide, 235:1. And again, just make sure when you're aligning your projector and you're getting everything set and square that you do it with the test patterns or image patterns that fit your aspect ratio. So other things that I'm kind of have in mind to do here is I may even go ahead and pull the projector a little further out. My real expectation is that the face of the projector and all of its exhaust will actually be like on level or just behind the curtain, fully open. And then this is giving me the ability as well, plenty of space to be able to have the lens assembly out in space on the projector and have all the throw distance that I need. While this still is actually helping to quiet things down a little bit, some of the noise, the internal fan noise that the projector is making is relegated still inside the closet, so it's a little more silent than it was as another fringe benefit. But this is really working great. I have no concerns, and I have plenty of options going forward to take it further and make it better as I need to. So that's that. If you like the video, please do all that regular YouTube stuff. Like, subscribe, hit the bell, share the video, leave a comment. Let's discuss what projector installation logistics have you solved in your home theater. Let me know. Otherwise, if you'd like to support the channel, of course, all the stuff is down in the description. Shop with my affiliates, Audio Device, Amazon, Best Buy, and more. Leave a super thanks, PayPal, Venmo tip, become a channel member. Thanks so much for watching, and come on back for more home theater discussion and fun.